finally here. It's taken, I don't know what's wrong with my system, but good evening, Graham, and welcome.
You're gonna get fined for that, Charles, for being late.
Well, I was on at 1 minute past six, so I've no idea what's gone wrong, and it's still going round in weird ways. But anyway, welcome.
Yeah.
That was the voice of Graham Chalmers, the intemperate Graham Chalmers, who already fed up with me and we only just started. This is the voice of the late Charles Hutchinson. I don't mean late, late. I mean just late.
That's a
And
cheery start, Charles.
it is a deeply cheery start to what is actually the first of our reviews of the year. We've hit December, to December the 1st today, and we're looking back today primarily albums of the year and films of the year and possibly books of the year, depending on how deeply we go into this. So we've set each other challenges to pick.
Yeah, Charles, interruption.
Yes,
I'm just back from Brantwood, which was the 19th century art critic and social reformer John Ruskin's house.
it was. You've been there before, Graham.
Well, yeah, it's a great place. And we stayed in the apartment above the art gallery, which he built for the artist Arthur Severin, who I think was married to John Ruskin's sister.
Yeah.
Anyway, to get in our apartment overlooking Coniston in the Lake District, you have to go through that gallery. So you get a free art exhibition essentially.
Mm.
So the one that I saw at the weekend was Ways of Turner, tracing his northern tour, where
Mm.
Monica Muller retraced the footsteps of Turner from about 1818 when he went around the north doing these sketches. And it's her interpretation of how it looks now. And they were great graphite and pencil sketches. And
Mm.
it's sort of tied in at the Tate Britain exhibition where they've got Turner versus Constable at the same time.
And
So it was a real bonus to be staying there and to have a road art exhibition.
are we on the eve of the announcement of the Turner Prize winner? I think we possibly
I
are.
think that's the could be next Sunday, some of that, I think.
Let's have a look. I've written it in my diary.
Or is it next Monday?
It is on Tuesday the 9th. Winner,
Okay, week on Tuesday.
yeah. So that's exciting to see what happens with that. We had our predictions earlier. So yes, so you'll be Ruskin back to the Ruskin house again, presumably next year. So shall we go with our albums of the year first, Graham? I always like to let you dive in at the deep end on this one.
Well, I think it's been a great year for interesting music, an awful lot of interesting music, but not necessarily any particularly great music. And I think we're living a strange age. I heard the musician Kelly Leons, whose
Mm.
last album came out in 2024, Dream State, and she was on Nick Grimshaw's BBC Six Music show
Oh
at
yeah.
breakfast time of the week. And as part of the conversation about her music, which is perfectly acceptable music, she said, this is what she said, with all the difficult energies in the world right now. And I thought, difficult energies, does she mean the destruction of Gaza, war in Ukraine, the hatred and lies of Trump and Farage and cancel culture? Is that what she means by
I got an
difficult
awful
energies?
feeling you're going to say something different.
No, I think she meant those things, but her way to describe it was to describe it as difficult energies. Well, I suggest that these phenomena around the world, which are making life feel bad at the moment, are way more than difficult energies. She sounded like this old film Kelly's Heroes, which came out in 1970 with Clint Eastwood
Oh
and
yeah.
Donald Sutherland, set in World War II,
Mm.
American tank division trying to get the German gold, and Clint Eastwood relies on Donald Sutherland, who's playing this very late 60s hippie-ish version of an American tank commander called Oddball. And in the
Oddball.
film, which is clearly trying to appeal to youngsters at the time who were into hippie things, he keeps on saying things like, hey man, I got positive waves, but baby, positive waves, baby. And we're living in an age where a lot of people now talk like Oddball and Kelly's Heroes, where to avoid getting into anything that might upset anything, they're describing big things as difficult energies.
Difficult
And I
energies.
think I think the music culture right now sort of is affected by that sort of approach.
Where, by comparison with Elvis Costello, Billy Bragg, Terry Hall and the Specials, Joe Strummer, the Sex Pistols.
I know there's still punk around. I mean,
No, I don't mean it like
idols
that.
are
I
idols
mean,
are pretty
Graham,
big.
I
Yeah,
don't mean
there's
it
a
like
lot of
that.
punk bands around,
I know.
but
I don't
the,
mean it like
the
that. It's the
yeah,
energy. So energy, anger is an energy. Shall we just quote John Lydon? Anger is
Mm.
an energy. And I would have thought that these times should be producing anger in songwriting. I probably said the same thing for the last few years, that I don't think there's enough angry songwriting out there. We interviewed a famously angry songwriter in in Hugh
Hugh
Cornwall
Cornwall of the
only
Stranglers.
recently, who wrote angry songs and continues to write
Yeah, but that's
songs
not the
fueled
difference.
by
Angry songs are still being written. I hear
them.
them on BBC Music. There's a lot of great, energetic young punk and post-punk influenced bands now,
Mm.
but they have no impact on the mainstream whatsoever. Whereas the Stranglers were a major band and had a
Yes.
big impact on the mainstream. So it's not there's none of that anger. It's just that it's enveloped in a world that suppresses and stops that anger ever reaching the mainstream.
Who's choosing to do that, Graham? Are you saying that actually record companies are doing this in some way?
Well, no, it's just the streaming world and the TV world. I mean, it, channel ITV and BBC used to try and debate amongst itself. How do we handle the Sex Pistols? How do we handle the Clash?
Mm.
How do we handle John Lydon?
Oh, well, we
But
banned the Pistols.
they took it seriously.
Yeah.
We can't imagine Netflix or Sky TV or Amazon Prime worrying about Idols or Sleaford Mods
No.
or Sprints or Wet Leg. You know,
They,
they're no threat to anybody.
have had two
So
worries this year. They've had Bob Villan this year to worry about, and
kneecap.
Kneecap, who've just played two nights at the Brunel Social Club. Yes.
That's right. So those are about the only two acts that have in any way transferred into what how it used to be, where they actually nearly impact in the mainstream. You're right. So you got me there, Charles. Scrap that argument. The argument's just completely gone.
Oh, I don't think you're wrong. I mean, this is the year where, as I learned from the Harrogate pantomime, the biggest songs of the year, Soda Pop, which is from a K-pop movie, massive success story, and then a song called Golden that was in the second half of the Harrogate pantomime, 14 million streams. So
I
there's
also
two
saw the Harrogate
instantly
Panto, which was
frothy and
exceedingly good.
hmm,
Exceedingly good. And I liked when they did Poison by Alice Cooper and
yes,
Paranoid by Black
paranoid,
Sabbath.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Mm.
But that was so. There's two songs, Soda Pop. Well, that's froth. Golden, which is always what everyone wants to dream of, either having gold, acquiring gold, or living some kind of golden life. So while I'm not suggesting that they are responses to difficult energies, they're kind of taking pop in a more conventional way that we're used to, literally in the case of Soda Pop. So anyway, in that scenario, nevertheless, and I do think it's not been a year of truly outstanding albums. I think it's been a year where significant artists have made albums that I think have been up there with some of their best work, which I'll be featuring in my list here of
Yeah,
five
but
albums.
I don't want that, Charles. Like, there's been plenty of new albums by old acts from the golden age of rock in the
Yeah,
60s and 70s. So you've had a new one by Neil Young, Van
yeah,
Morrison,
yeah,
Suzanne Vega, Brian Eno, John Fogerty, David
yeah,
Byrne, Robert Plant, Mavis Staples, Paul Weller,
yeah.
Jonathan Richman, and they're all good
All
albums.
recent Graham those last
Yeah,
few
yeah,
months. Mm.
they're all good albums. But I don't want, I don't want to be. I can't be inspired by something by someone who's in the 70s and 80s, particularly. But then you've also had plenty of new albums by old acts from recent years, and I mean by that acts from like late 80s or 90s or not. So
Haircut
you've had
100
you've
making
had
a new album, Graham.
so,
Yes.
so you've had Mogwai Bad Fire,
Yeah,
good album. Robert Foster Strawberries, good album.
yeah,
Stereolabs Instant Holograms on Metal Film, good album. St.
yeah,
Etienne International, good album.
yeah,
Edwin Collins Nation Shall Speak
yeah.
Today Unto Nation, good album. Manic Street Preachers Critical Thinking, good album. Gruff Reese Dim Probs, good album. Tortoise Touch, good album. But again, these aren't new groups. These are just not as old as the golden oldies. So I'm not going to pick albums from any of those bands if I can avoid it, because it's a bit like just liking something you liked 30 years ago or 40 years ago. I want to like something that came out by an act that's like 5 years old or 10 years old. And that's where you start to get problems
So
because
you're going to be very
all that
disappointed
stuff,
with you're going to be very disappointed with my list then, Graham.
well, that's going to be tricky because, there's loads of interesting albums. BC Camp Like a Sober Conversation, Geese Getting Killed, Baxter Drury, All Bar One, Kate Le
Mm.
Bon, Michelangelo Dying, Jacob Alon in Limerence, Annie Schmerick, Devastation, End of the Universe, CMAT, Euro Country, Wet Leg Moisturizer, Richard Dawson, End of the Middle.
Hmm.
There's loads of interesting albums. but there's not one of them that contains loads of good songs,
CMAT comes
or the
close.
well, the one with the best songs is CMAP. She writes very good songs. The trouble is, she's really country-esque, and in general, I hate country music, unless it's like a bit gritty and a bit honest, like Hank Williams, or I don't know, Johnny
Johnny
Cash at
Cash.
his best. I just or it's a rock band with a bit of country influence. Hey, my God, the Rolling Stones,
Yeah.
Wild Horses. I can't stand country. So all the rest are interesting, but BC Camp, like every time he writes a good tune, he chops the song up and tries to stop it being conventional. There's a real desire amongst young musicians never to be conventional, but that just means they end up with something interesting, but never actually hits the spot.
That's exactly how his gig was in New York. Exactly that. Just
Mm, mm.
cutting the songs up.
It's like Sprint's most recent album. It's only got one song, Descartes, which is actually good. Loads of energy, loads of passion. Geese getting killed. It's got a couple of tracks that have got a tune to them, although they sound a bit like Tom Waits in the 1970s tried to do Mumford and Sons. And the rest is just all interesting wiffle waffle. So it's really hard to cling on to the music. Like Anthony Schmerich, interesting, likable guy, but it's all like hippie lyrics and wiffle waffle sub dance music, nice background or, you know, chill out zone. It's like, where's the meat? Where's the meat that's got tunes and meat? And
You
so
sound to me to have eliminated virtually every single album this year. You mentioned
I
an amazing amount of albums that you're not going to include
exactly,
in your top five.
yeah, yeah.
Right. I am really intrigued.
Well, well, my top five isn't super exciting because I think it's almost impossible this year to be super excited by the albums. You can be interested or curious. You can't be super excited. So number five, I'm putting this in purely because they're underdogs. The Last Dinner Party from the Par. I like them because they're an all-female band whose lyrics are clearly feminist, and From the Pyre is a bit tougher than a debut Prelude to Ecstasy.
Absolutely.
But they're not cool because A, they're from a posh background, and B, they're very feminine. And being posh and feminine definitely doesn't get any cool points. So I support Last Dinner Party, who are on Island Records, not purely because of that, because the album has a lot of good songs, although not as good as Prelude to Ecstasy. Because of that, because they're now the underdogs, and they shouldn't be. They shouldn't. You shouldn't have to tick boxes to sell records.
Are they underdogs
Number
to Wet
four,
Leg?
yeah, Wet Legs still tick more boxes.
They do, don't they?
Although Wet Legs album, Moisturizer, it's tougher and less fun than their debut. There's no chaise longue. Even like Catch These Fists is a
Mm,
pretty tough sentiment, a tough song, and they're
mm.
they're in danger of becoming a bitter, very serious band. And the second Wet Leg album is like the Strokes' second album was to the first Strokes album.
Yeah.
So Ruben Fire was a much more disciplined, drilled, less loose, less fun version of Is This It?
Mm.
And that's what the Wet Leg are. And the new songs that are interesting, like Davina McCall, they don't sound like Wet Leg. So I don't know where Wet Leg are going. Anyway, I
Mm.
digress.
You
Little
do.
Sim's
I
Lotus is
digressed
my
you there. Sorry.
yeah. Little Sim's Lotus is number four
Hmm.
because when there's a few songs on Lotus where she's doing traditional rapping, and I don't like them at all. But when she mixes her style of rapping and her ideas with a mishmash of other musical genres, she's absolutely brilliant. And this is her sixth album on AWAL Records. And
Mm.
it's the first album with an input from Inflo, the great producer and songwriter whose own band Salt do that sort of new soul
Oh yes.
very well. And she's had a bust up with Inflo. And so on one of the tracks, she's got lots of guest people on the album. She's got Michael Kiwanuka, who's on the album, who's also had a bust up with Inflo. So
Oh, well.
it's a bit of a bust
Outflow
up
now,
album.
Graham. Sounds like.
But I don't care about that.
Mm.
I like the sound of her voice, and I like when it connects with interesting music, and she does that really well.
The song that she
Number
did on
three,
the song that she did on Graham Norton was exactly how you're describing, and
mm.
that fusion of wrapped into other music, and that was the first time I'd really been struck by her actually.
Yeah, the more London she is, the better. And the
Mm.
less she tries to be American, the better as well.
Yeah.
Number three, this is technically the best album of the year in terms of its overall quality of ideas and songwriting
Mm.
and instrumentation. Pulp More on Rough Trade is
Yeah.
probably the best album of the year. But my God, Pulp were formed in the early 80s. And on top of that, it's only got three upbeat songs on the whole album, and the rest is decidedly downbeat. And you would think that Jarvis was in his 70s, how downbeat a lot of the songs are. And I just don't want Pulp to become a sort of like Sheffield Leonard Cohen act. So they're at number three, not number one, for that reason alone, which sounds harsh, and it is harsh.
It is harsh. We'll come on to
Number
that.
two, number two is Suede Antidepressants on Fiction Records. Now, if they hadn't done the previous album, what was it called? I was going to say auto suggestion, but it's not. Auto suggestion is not right.
No. While you're talking, I'll try and look it up.
Anyway, if the last album hadn't been so absolutely perfect, Antidepressants would have been the best album of the year. But compared to the previous album, it's just slightly not quite as good. So I can't make it number one for that reason.
That's a fair enough
And
reason.
finally, at number one, and this will surprise you, Charles.
Oh,
And
yes.
I've gone for this because it's not a normal album. It has emotional impact. It has great skill. It hangs together as an entire album. It's got tunes and it means something. And you can listen to it and get a great deal from it. It's not an album to play at parties, not unless your party is like in a church. It's These New Puritans, Crooked Wing on Domino Records is my number one album of the year.
An album that I've not heard a single song from.
Well, this is what I like. The interesting thing is this is only about their fifth album. I mean, they formed in the noughties. They're both in their late 30s now. So
Where
the
are they
fifth
from?
album, they're from Southend. So they're not Northern Charles. They're from Southend.
No, no.
They formed about 2006.
Yeah.
It's two brothers who make the component parts of These New Puritans, Jack Barnett and George Barnett. They're both twins,
Mm.
but George is the one who's a successful model. So he's a successful male model who's appeared in the front of Vogue, a bit like the character in that great film Triangle of Sadness. He's a proper male actor. So they're an unusual duo, Jack Barnett and George Barnett. And if you want to know what Crooked Wing sounds like, Crooked Wing is like this. It's like the piano longers of Kate Bush's 50 Words for Snow album,
Oh, yes.
crossed with the sort of like percussive oddity of 1980s Peter Gabriel and Peter Gabriel 3 album, with a bit of the spaces and silences of Tok Tok's Spirit of Eden from the 1980s,
Mm.
plus a bit of Steve Reich's minimalism. That's the overall approach. But within that, the instrumentation is dominated by soprano singing, either male or female. It's got a lot of pipe organ,
Mm.
straight from a church. And then it's got vibraphones, trumpets, French horns, and cretin bells. There's a lot of bells going on. And it adds up to sort of like wonderful mix of atmosphere and melody and melancholy and bits of energy. And it sounds like something deep is happening beneath the surface. So you're not quite sure what it is. A little bit like Tok Tok did with the Spirit of Eden album.
Yeah.
And it's a song cycle, so it ends up in a circular fashion back where it started. And it's just a gorgeous album. It's absolutely beautiful and it's really smart, but it's got good tunes. These aren't people being experimental for the
Mm.
sake of being experimental. These are people who want to create something beautiful. It's just a great album.
So there's the number one. And the album we were searching for did start with Auto, so you weren't wrong. Auto Fiction, 2022.
Auto fiction.
Yeah.
I think auto suggestion is probably better.
I rather like that suggestion on your part. Right, now I'm going to give rather briefer answers than you because actually, strange enough, several of the ones that you've mentioned do pop up in my list. So,
Mm.
so right, number five, I always like to include a reissue because I buy lots of reissues. and that's partly
Mhm.
because I'm getting old, and I'm not saying I'm living in the past, but I am
That's
like
Jethro
you.
Tull.
Absolutely, unlike you, who rather thinks that lots of every coffin spit is rather wasted. I would say, for example, Nick Drake, the making of Five Leaves Left was entirely justified. This is probably one of the most tragic of all early deaths in the great pantheon of early deaths. So he never knew what he must have known himself what a wonderful talent he was, but the public caught on far too late, as we know. And this takes the path through his making of the first album. What it also shows, though, is that for all the fact people tend to think, oh, gloomy, doomy, early death. Actually, there was humour in the younger Nick Drake, and a lithe intelligence, and some humour that people don't maybe expect. But also,
He was an outgoing guy until he failed to
yes,
have hits.
exactly, and that still comes across. And also, that what comes across is he's very firm as to what he wanted. So, for example, he gets Robert Kirby involved, who basically was at the university with him, but he knew that he could make an influence. And Joe Boyd took him on board. Danny Thompson came on board even as well, of course, right from the first album. So it's very detailed, superb notes as well that accompany it. It's my idea exactly what a reissue should do. It reveals things we didn't know before. It also reaffirms what a wonderful creative force Nick Drake was. So that is my reissue of the year.
I saw the tribute to Nick Drake songs at the Royal Albert Hall, which is during the proms.
Oh yes,
And it was all your modern singers who were all perfectly good singers doing classic Nick Drake songs. And what I discovered is that as good as the Nick Drake songs are, if you don't do them well, they don't sound half as good. And
no,
most of the singers at the Royal Albert Hall failed to grasp the meaning of the songs they were singing. They were interesting interpretations, but they weren't good in general.
no. What does that say then about Nick Drake?
The guy was he was champagne and caviar
Mm,
only. He
yeah.
couldn't do anything that wasn't at the absolute top level. It had to
Mm,
be the 0.01% of top things, otherwise it didn't work. It didn't work in the middle, or
no,
God knows, towards the bottom. He couldn't live an
no,
average life.
no, exactly. So number four is Bonnie Prince Billy,
Oh, really?
the prolific Bonnie Prince Billy, also Will Oldham, of course, and the Purple Bird. And this is, and of course, you love country, ho ho ho. This is his most Nashville record in a very long time. Songwriting of the highest. Always been a great songwriter, as Bonnie Prince Billy. I think sometimes he's mucked around a little bit too much, and I like it when he plays it actually comparatively straight and simple, and it sticks to being more like a Johnny Cash. And the Purple Bird, I think, is as he says, it's his most Nashville record, but it's also, I think, the best songwriting he's done in ages. So that is my number four. Number three, and you touched on this only briefly, is Edwyn Collins. Nation shall speak unto
Hmm.
nation. He's performed his last tour. We don't know whether that also means he will not make any more albums. I hope it doesn't mean that. We know, obviously, since the two brain aneurysms in quick succession, he has limited movement and he can't play guitar anymore. But he is still a combination of wit and lyricism. And as will be the case with the further up my list of albums, this is also a man addressing getting older and coming to terms with that and accepting it as well.
Did you think it was as good as Bad Beer, his most recent album before
I
Nation Shall Speak Unto
I
Nation?
actually
Because
liked
I
it
thought
there.
Bad Beer was really good.
I liked it more than that.
Really? Oh,
I liked it more than that
preferred
because
Bad Beer.
I mean, I don't drink beer, so it's always going to be a problem for me to like any kind of beer.
Yeah, I love Bad Beer.
I just feel that this is a man who's come to the reckoning with humour though. I mean, I always like the humour going way back to Orange Juice. It's always written with humour, and he still has a huge sense of melody in his writing, which I really like as well. The tunes are more simplistic than they used to be in Orange Juice. That's noticeable, but I don't think that's a fault in the songwriting, and I think the songs go straight to the heart. And I've always loved his singing voice, which some people don't, but I always have. So I'm always joyous when Edwyn produces a new album, much like I'm always joyous when my dear Alan Ayckbourn obsession that you go on about. I'm always happy when Alan produces a new play.
Maybe there could
So
be an Alan Ayckbourn musical with music by songs by Edwyn Collins.
That's a very interesting. Nation shall speak unto nation through theatre as
Mm,
well as
mm.
through music. Now, you see, you're quite right, Graham. I have not acknowledged any new talent at all, to the point that I think Van Morrison has made his best album in a very, very long time. I don't
Heard the
know.
second side's very good.
I, I absolutely love the Rememberings album. He's turned 80, and I think this is his best. He never lost the ability to bring instruments together in really, really pleasing ways. But I think he's rediscovered strong, strong melody on this. And I also think that his voice, I mean, Tom Jones is the other singer into his 80s who still has a magnificent voice. Van Morrison's voice is as strong and powerful and moving as it's ever been. And
Mm.
Cutting Corners is a wonderful song. I read one review that said it was too cliched, absolute nonsense.
There's
Um,
only one other famous musician of his age group
yeah,
whose voice has sustained and
yes,
hasn't really weakened much. Neil Young.
Neil
Even if you
Young.
don't like Neil
Yeah.
Young songs, his voice is almost as good as it always was.
And yet it was always a kind of fragile sounding instrument, his voice, in some ways, Neil Young. It's unusual that, there is that side to it. So Rememberings by Van Morrison at number two, and you dismissed Pulp for honourable reasons. I'm a miserablist. I'm not the world's happiest man, Graham, and I never have been. I love laughter. I love laughter, but I also love people being truthful about where they are in the world. It's not the first time that Jarvis has done this. Of course, I can never remember the album which had trees on it. That album was a pretty miserablest kind of album, and actually sort of
Mm.
bombed from the point of view of at their commercial peak. But I think with more, and this is the first album in a very, very long time, there are, yes, maybe only three upbeat songs. I don't have a problem with that. Jarvis, I don't feel like he's saying he's 70. I mean, I'm a man in the
Mm.
60s. I connect with his attitude to being in his 60s. And there's still the humor there. It's a darker
I
humor,
don't know.
maybe.
Jarvis is too clever and too funny to be a beaten man, so I don't like
Correct.
him to feel or sound like a beaten man at any
I
point.
don't think he does feel like a beaten man. I think he's just come to terms with the age that he is. I don't think he's actually, saying he's giving up on life with that. He's just being realistic about being an older bloke. And I think he writes as ever really, really well about sex. He's always been great at doing that. And it has, I think, more memorable songs to it than you're suggesting. And I've
That's
played it the
true. It
most.
also has lyrics which have a point at all points,
Absolutely.
unlike a lot of more recent albums by more recent acts.
One can quote the lyrics with him in a way that you can't with other songwriters. And I think the other thing is, this is the first time album in a very long time. It could have been a flop.
Mm.
It might not have been worth it. It absolutely was worth the comeback for this, definitely.
That's true.
And so was The Cure the year before. So,
Yeah, it was the
and
biggest album,
I
Cure
mean,
album.
maybe I'm looking at it from the point of view that, on my tree, the circles are growing. I'm 64 now. I kind of like aging with the bands that I've liked for years and years. I still buy albums religiously, pretty well, buy the people that I've always loved. Sometimes I might disappoint, but I think that Pulp has more than delivered on it. Return, I think Van Morrison, as I said, made his best album in ages. Edwyn Collins, I thought, coming to terms with, again, with age. And so that's why they're featuring. I know I've not put a single new younger talent into my list, but that is how I'm feeling.
Yeah,
I'm not
I can
connecting with
see what.
that.
Yeah, I can sort of understand that because I myself have serious doubts about a lot of younger music, but I don't know. It's a bit. It's gone a bit far. Anyway, you need to listen to these new Puritans
I'm saying
Crooked
I'm
Wing
going to
album.
do exactly that, Graham. Tomorrow morning, I
But
shall listen to
but
that.
you need to
Now,
watch it either. You need to listen to it in silence. So you
yes,
can
I'll
listen
do
to it
that.
in company because it's a very nice album. But you can't have chat. It's not going to work with
That's
chat.
fine. I tend to work on my own in the kitchen, so that's what I'll do. Now we've over talked on albums, so maybe shall we do our books of the year instead of the films?
Yeah, because that'll be quick. Okay, you go first then.
Right now, okay. So
Number three.
first of all, it may seem very self-indulgent to pick Leeds United books, but I'm sorry, I'm going to because I've got to be truthful about what I've read. Well,
Okay.
either you take your passion seriously in life, or you take your
Well,
passion
yeah.
seriously in life. Okay,
Okay.
and so normally an awful lot of Leeds United books are about the great years of Don Revie, but instead,
Yeah.
and I've tried to bring
Hagiography.
these up, but
Mm.
Johnny Cooper, who's the statistician basically, so his book is called As Leeds Go Marching On: History of Leeds United Through Stories, Stats, and Trivia. It's really, really well put together. So, of course, it covers the great years, but it covers all the years before and the years since. And
How many
Johnny worked
pages?
Say again.
How many? There's 2 minutes to go, Charles. Do you want to
Oh,
race through to your next two as
okay.
well?
Right. No, the other book, Season 24-25 by Daniel Chapman, who now runs the Leeds ISTA website, and he's doing podcasts on there as well. He's by far the best Leeds United. He's by far the best Leeds United writer. Has been for a very long time, along with Phil Hay, who's no longer at the Athletic doing Leeds United. Does other things instead. Daniel
does he need counselling after writing that book though? Because
Leeds, that's what I like about him. Look, Leeds United drives everybody who supports Leeds United utterly mad, but occasionally we have sublime moments. Daniel Chapman gets that more than any other writer about Leeds United.
Excellent. What's number one, Charles? Number one book for you?
This is technically cheating because this is a book that I took ages to track down.
Old book.
Finally got hold of it. Sinead O'Connor's Remembering.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. What year did it come out?
Well, it came out not long actually before she died in many ways, which is why when you read this.
So it's her autobiography.
Yeah. And I mean, you sit there reading this, and she's so passionate in every way. So it's a damage. She obviously knows she's damaged, but also her fierceness and the fact that she's been proven right about so many things. So one of the titles is Why I Sing, for example. So as I say, it took a long time to be able to get hold of this book, and I've always enjoyed Sinead, being an outsider. And
are you on her side the whole book, or does she have moments that alarm you in the book?
Yeah, well, of course, because she has been so troubled. Interestingly, she wrote part of this book in one state of being, and the other in another state of being. One of which was she'd been spending times in mental institutions, and very much the two parts of it are very contrasting because of that. So that the mental state that she felt definitely affected the writing, which is interesting in itself. So it's called Rememberings. If anyone hasn't read it, and they should.
Charles, I will do my top 3 books of the year in the next episode.
Excellent. Well, we're hitting our last minute. We've focused on music, which we always do, but I think it's for a year that slightly did slightly disappoint us in terms of really, really high peaks. Nevertheless, has produced, I think, a well worthwhile discussion of why the hell aren't people making decent enough music.
It's almost like everything's alternative now. There is no mainstream. It's all either pop or your alternative. There's nothing in between.
You've been listening to the podcast Two Big Egos in a Small Car. Your hosts were Graham Chalmers and Charles Hutchinson. This was a Baltic Sub production.